Before 1975, individuals with physical disabilities and developmental differences were segregated from educational opportunities. In 1975, Congress passed the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, also known as IDEA, which ensured the students' rights to a free, appropriate public education, or FAPE. Schools were no longer allowed to turn students away and restrict their educational opportunities. Schools were also required to provide necessary accommodations to ensure the independence and inclusion of individuals with differences and disabilities to the extent possible. Each state receives federal funding as a result of the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act to assist in providing special education to children with disabilities and educational differences. School districts must abide by IDEA rules in return for funding. The State Education Department, or Department of Public Instruction, is responsible for allocating funds to school districts, which then employ instructors, teachers, and assistants to provide necessary training, services, consultations, and accommodations. Additionally, the State Department's responsibility is to ensure that every school district and each public charter school offers a free, suitable public education to every student with a documented disability or developmental challenge. The Individuals with Disabilities Education Act provisions assist students aged 3 through 22, diagnosed with the following: autism spectrum disorder, deafness, developmental delay, emotional disability, hearing impairment, intellectual disability, multiple disabilities, orthopedic impairment, other health impairment, specific learning disability, speech-language impairment, traumatic brain injury, and visual impairment. As mentioned earlier, free, appropriate public education, known as FAPE, highlights what must be provided to each student eligible for special education. These services and accommodations are provided free of charge to the students' families. Some of the services and accommodations include speech-language therapy, audiology services, interpreting services, psychological and counseling services, physical therapy, occupational therapy, therapeutic recreation, and adapted physical education, rehabilitation counseling, orientation and mobility services, school health and nurse services, social work services, transportation, early identification, and assessment of disabilities in children, and medical services. Each student receiving special education has a written commitment outlining their curriculum, called an Individualized Education Plan, or IEP. It is created by a group of individuals that includes the child's academic representatives, such as teachers, parents, and relevant stakeholders, to help outline the specific interventions or accommodations that will be used throughout the academic year. The IEP team is required to evaluate and revise each IEP at least once a year. Please reach out if you have questions or need support while advocating for your child's educational freedoms and rights.